Bam.
I'm Aurora Winter, and you are watching the Break It Down show.
Fun to have you back on. Thank you so much for coming back. Oh my gosh, my microphone's way over here. Let me put this thing back on my shirt. Uh,
Oh, that sounds a lot
we,
better, Pete.
yeah, now I sound better. You sound better. We all sound better. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and it's neat to be able to support folks who are doing incredible things. It's one thing to work in the business world and be like, this is how you business better and all that. And there's a lot of people that do that, and it's all wonderful. And we need those people, but you also are doing something that's even more creative and beyond that. And I thought we might just talk. I want to talk about that because it's comfortable that you write about, and I'm saying this positively for everybody, like businessing better than the standard person, right? And there's like that is a comfortable industry where you can say, here's how you optimize, here's how you change, here's how, and you do all these, and you can write these books. Peter Drucker wrote like 60 books in his career on management, right? Changed his mind, did all these things. But you've taken this other leap where you're like, I'm going to invent a whole new world and do fiction writing. I mean, you do the other thing too, but now you're doing, that is such a courageous jump to get from a known established world where once you have your name, it's like, hey, I can just talk and write for the rest of my life, right? But you said, too simple.
Well, thanks for acknowledging that, Pete. And I must be somebody who really loves learning and new challenges. Because yes, the Magic Mystery and the Multiverse, the new series of books, it's fantasy for young adults, and it was a learning curve to go from writing nonfiction to writing fiction. But so much fun. I feel like if we're not learning, we're not growing, we're not alive. So as you put up on the screen there, people can go to magicmysteryandthemultiverse.com and they can see the books on Kickstarter live right now. So Kickstarter was also something new to learn. But the reason why I wrote Magic Mystery and the Multiverse and the second book that's coming out on Kickstarter now, this is just the proof copy. You can see it's already written. Is the Secret Multiverse Academy is book 2, and there's a third book coming out later this year. Is I just thought, how can I make a difference? What do I care about? And what would leave a lasting legacy, or what would make a difference? And I thought about my own life, and I remembered being 9 years old and reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, and it changed my life. I thought that was just so entrancing and magical to be able to read a book and read a series of books and be transported somewhere else. And the story of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is so engaging and entertaining, but hidden beneath it, there are some valuable life lessons that I received as a youth, and only later as an adult, I went, wait a minute, there were some life lessons in that book.
Yeah.
And so I thought, C.S. Lewis changed my life with the Narnia series, and later he changed it with another book. And I thought, if I could impact youth, that's where the future is. That's where our hope is. And if I could provide a fun, fast-paced, entertaining, engaging story, but that's also got hidden within it some valuable life lessons that they might want to consider, then I am living up to my God-given potential, or at least attempting to live up to my God-given potential.
Yeah. There's a lot in all that stuff. When you read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then you get through the next book and the next book. And I remember the oldest sister's name, but when Peter and the other one, when they age out of the story, and you're like, oh, I want to get to know them some more. And you can see, and then you find that you've been tricked. I've been tricked. There was stories in there, and morals and metaphors and there's something in there. And in my life, I go back to my high school twice a year to talk to the seniors as they prepare to graduate. And I'm like, I'm you from the future. What do you want to ask me? And they're too dumb to know what to ask me. So my buddy, who's the teacher who hosts it, he runs me through a conversation. And there's plenty of kids, they're not dumb, but they ask all kinds of interesting questions, you know, but they're not looking for the future. They're sort of looking, try to understand life in general. But that's sort of what I think about when I sat in the classroom as a high school kid or middle school kid, and someone came in, especially if they were graduated a couple of years before, they weren't always honest. They would give us like this, like, you got to study real hard. College is hard. And I'm like, you didn't study when you were here 2 years ago. And I wanted to
Exactly.
be honest, right? And say, look, it's going to be hard. It's going to be awesome. You're going to have so much freedom. You're going to be terrified at the freedom. It's going to be up to you. And that's going to be great. It's also going to be terrifying. And so you add all these things together. I don't know if it makes a bit of difference, but I offer it. And now it's turned into speaking every now and then in front of like prison audiences sometimes,
Oh,
you know?
wow,
So
Pete, good for you. You're making a difference.
I'm running my yap.
Well, I spoke at a library yesterday because we like to
Yeah.
reach out to youth. But one of the things I really loved about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the protagonist is a girl, Lucy.
Right.
And I really liked that because obviously I'm a girl and that spoke to me. And I didn't really, when I was 9, it didn't really occur to me. But later as an adult, I'm like, wait a minute. You know, the Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings, Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, it's all male protagonists. So I
Mm.
wanted my books, the Magic Mystery and the Multiverse series of books, to have a spunky female protagonist instead of your typical boy. And then the other
Yeah.
thing I really liked about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is hidden within a very engaging and interesting and compelling story. There are messages about family being the love and loyalty and sparring between siblings. And I thought, well, that is something that's often missing from
Right.
books. We don't that often see siblings in books. So Harry Potter, that's very classic. You've got the orphan, but I thought, okay, no, I want to shine a light on family and how much family means to me. And even if your sibling drives you absolutely crazy, in the book, the book that I've written, the Magic Mystery and the Multiverse series, the kids are annoyed with each other, but they also love each other. So I
Mm.
thought that is something worthwhile expressing, because I think books can change reality. Fiction can change reality by inspiring people to become more heroic, to become more aligned with, being the hero of their own story.
Yeah, that's great. And again, you can put a message in there and have it be a little more palatable instead of like the very rough and blunty, very special episode of Blossom, where Six does some drinking and you're like, what? It's like that's not a lesson. Come on.
Yeah, you certainly don't want the lesson to be the foreground because that's really annoying.
Yeah. And have it to be you know, C.S. Lewis was brilliant. There's a lot of religion in that, but if you just enjoy the story, you don't have to have any religion in it. It's just this incredible story that takes you away. And sure, as you get older, you can read and you can go, oh, okay, there's a lot of Jesus and God and religion. Okay, great. But the story just speaks to kids, right? They go
The
off into this
story
wardrobe.
speaks
And
to kids.
I used to think about when I go to my grandma's house, I was terrified of that place. It was just a scary place. She wasn't like a sweet old grandma. And so I was like, where is the wardrobe in this place? Where can I go hide and escape? Because I knew it when I was reading the book that I was reading a fantasy. And then I thought, like, there's kids sitting in an actual wardrobe somewhere and they're having like a make-believe session. Like I
Yeah,
could reason my way through that, but that's kind of where it stopped. And then they would disappear into this fantasy world.
yeah.
And that all made sense to me. But even that, like, that's not in the book, but it's in the book. It's in the lessons of the book of I don't know, these worlds that we conjure up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe does have sort of a portal fantasy, and my fantasy series has got, the multiverse, so it's obviously got the portal. I'd say it's a little
Right.
bit like Harry Potter meets Doctor Who, except with a
Sure.
spunky, feisty female lead who's a young teenager rather than the male leads that we typically see.
Right.
But the other thing that I liked about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is, the Aslan is so cool, but there's a message about forgiveness, because what was the name of the brother who was so bad? Edmund? Was it Edmund?
Yeah, the one that couldn't say no to Turkish delight and all those things.
That one, yeah. And yet in the book, he is not condemned forever. There is a kind
Right.
of forgiveness. So I wanted
Right.
to play with that a little bit and see the loyalty between the kids. And then in the book that's coming out now, the Secret Multiverse Academy, I wanted to explore, um, being welcoming to all peoples, but I did
Right.
that through they're different species. So they're elves, they're dwarves, they're trolls, they're vampires, and so got
Right.
to kind of explore that. But the other thing that matters to me, but hopefully is very subtle in the book, but I think it's an opportunity for parents and teachers and kids and young adults to think about censorship. So the evil people in the Magic Mystery and the Multiverse series are censors, basically thought police, and that's how they dominate. And so I'm not saying think this or think that, but I'm just inviting people think about this, because I think that is a danger in our society right now, that if you don't agree with the majority, you get canceled. I think that's just so wrong.
Yeah. And quite often, well, first off, everybody claims George Orwell's on their side, and that's always funny. And you're right. Like when we don't learn to tolerate messages we don't agree with, then we don't learn tolerance at a young age. And it's easy. Like when I was a kid at our church, my dad was involved in like the developmentally disabled crew, and he would play the piano and sing songs with them, and that was part of what he did. And that exposure to folks that make you uncomfortable when you're young taught me that, like, hey, these folks are just full of love. If you want to get hugged too much by people that love the heck out of everybody, you go over there to where he was playing music and singing songs, and and you do, through exposure to something that's uncomfortable when you're young, you learn, like, oh, these are just people. These are just people. And it's not like a one-day lesson. It takes a while, but that's the whole thing, where, like, if there are messages that we don't agree with, they don't have to agree with them, but being able to sit down with someone and have a conversation where we don't agree on everything, that's life. That's
life,
100% life.
And that's learning. And what about being curious instead of being condemning? I mean, if we only accept the majority rule as gospel, so to speak, I mean, so many things used to be common sense, like the earth was the center of the universe. That was common sense. And people who disagreed with it, like Copernicus and Galileo, were basically sentenced to death for saying, well, maybe the sun is the center. No, you go down. Right. And then it used to be just common sense that there was no point in translating the Bible into English from Latin, because why should the peasants be able to read anyway? And it was really only for the exclusive to read the Bible in Latin. And that excommunicated a few people. And it used to be thought, well, obviously women are subject to their husbands, and why should women vote? That's a ridiculous idea. That used to be the common thread. And then it used to be like, well, gay people are obviously doomed. That used to be the common view. So many things that we take for granted today, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, were things that people would be canceled for. So can we learn from our own human history to be curious instead of so darn sure that we have all the answers?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know I don't have all the answers. I prove that to myself at every turn, especially when you get some perspective, right? You look back and you're like, oh gosh. So I wanted to go back to this comparison between Lucy and your protagonist. Tell us who your protagonist is.
Her name is Anna Zest.
Anna. And so you have these female protagonists, and in some sense, this is Lucy, and I'm assuming Anna, exercising their own independence and their own ability to not be dominated by one thing. And say, hey, I'm here. This wardrobe has this amazing adventure. It's dangerous. It's scary, but it's also wonderful. And so I'm going to go run. The other day, this is a silly thing. The other day, I posted this. A friend of mine on X put up a thing like you had to choose your adventure. It was like Kamala Harris and President Trump, right? And I'm like, I choose neither. I choose to live my own life and not be dominated by someone who doesn't know me, doesn't care about me, isn't going to do anything for me. I'm going to go be the biggest impact in my own life. And I think about someone like Lucy, and I'm assuming Anna, that if you can learn, look, you can't be 100% independent, but if you can learn self-reliance, you can learn to withstand some things that are uncomfortable, you can do pretty well if you just continue to stack towards your life, towards not even, you don't have to know where you're going. You just have to
Yeah.
keep active and going, like challenge yourself. And some days you don't have to take a nap. You don't have to challenge yourself. But
Well, Anna is a bit older than Lucy. She's about 13 years old. She's a wannabe actress. She lives in Los Angeles, or at least at the beginning of the story, she lives in Los Angeles. And she is spunky and feisty and confident and optimistic, perhaps a bit to the extreme. And her younger brother, Zachary, is the opposite. So it's fun to have characters who are different. So he's recovering from cancer. So while she's athletic, he's frail. While she's an optimist, he's a pessimist. While she sees the cup as half full, he always sees it as half empty, and how things could go wrong, and she sees how things could go right. So I just love the contrast between those two characters. And it's Anna's enthusiasm that nothing could go wrong that sends them off on this great adventure into the multiverse. But then when she gets there, she, a little bit Wizard of Ozzy, runs into Censor and seemingly kills an evil being, which then immediately sets up a bunch of people wanting to help her because, yay, you eliminated the horrible person who was taking away our ability to speak and have freedom. And then on the other hand, it sets the villains, who are censors or thought police, after her in a big way. And then there's also, is she the chosen one? Is she the one that was predicted to come and save this world, which is called Telesora, from these evil people? And she, of course, thinks, like in the Matrix, she thinks that, oh, couldn't be her. Don't be ridiculous. But there's all kinds of reasons to, well, maybe she is. And of course, things go from bad to worse and force her to really step up her game, because her brother gets kidnapped. And can she rescue him? Can she get back to Earth? Can she solve all these problems? And who's on her side and who's out to betray her? So we have a lot of fun with it. Yeah.
It is. It sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
How much design is there in, when you try to layer in a lesson or whatever it is, how much design is that? And how does that compete with the story?
The story is always first, in my view. But I think about what is it that I'd really like to say at the very beginning, and then I put that into the characters. So I wanted to say something about free speech because I started writing these books in 2020. Obviously, I have not written them with ChatGPT, or it wouldn't take me 4 friggin' years to come out with 3 fantasy books. Oh my God, there's so many haters.
Well, they're better. I promise you they're better. I don't need a predictive word generator to get wrong what I want to say.
So I mean, if any writers or would-be writers are listening to this, first I think about what I want to say, and then I put that into the character so that it makes sense. So I wanted to say something about free speech. I believe free speech is the foundation of our freedom, and it's a foundational right, and it's so important. First, there was the word. And so I made the evil people thought police, or I'm calling them censors with a C, like censorship. So then and I gave them a really good reason. And so then I decided to explore air, because it kind of relates to speech. So to be inspired, to be in spirit, to speak requires air. So the nasty guys are from a different multiverse, and they are stealing all the air from the planet that Anna ends up on. So I'm working with a theme that resonates with something I'm interested in, the free speech, but it goes with the story because the people from the advanced planet, which is called Avenir, they've destroyed their planet. So they don't have they have a very tiny bubble that protects the castle of the crown, and everything else is toxic because they had a nuclear war and they destroyed their planet. A little, ecology lesson there. And so they need a planet's worth of oxygen. So they decide they're just going to, in a vampiric way, steal it. So all of the story has got lots of conflict, and everybody has clear motivations, but underneath it, there's a theme about, well, what happens when you can't speak up? Your air is literally stolen. And, we can survive for 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without air. So I wanted to play with that.
Yeah. No, that's great. And the free speech thing, is that run throughout the series, or is that just the focal point of book 2?
It runs throughout the series because the bad guys in all three books are the thought police or the censors, and
Right.
so we get to play with that, and there's people at the second book, The Secret Multiverse Academy, which is the one that's on Kickstarter right now. If people are interested, Pete's got the link right there, magicmysteryandthemultiverse.com, redirects to the Kickstarter. Or if you just go to Kickstarter and type in my name, Aurora Winter, it will also come up, AuroraWinter.
Yeah.
So the bad guys are always the censors, but then I get to play with the value of speech. There's a character who cannot speak because her tongue was cut out, but she manages to express herself very, very well. Her nickname is Gabby. Of course, kids would call who can't speak Gabby, but she communicates with tarot cards and with sullen silences. She's got a real chip on her shoulder because, I mean, wouldn't you have a chip on your shoulder if somebody cut your tongue out to stop you from speaking? And then, I have another character who can't speak for various reasons. I have characters who can't read. So I'm exploring communication as a subplot or as character traits. So it's never like the author coming out and saying, you should believe in free speech. It's more the character going, oh my God, not only are they going to cut out our tongues, but they're stealing all of our air. Emergency, emergency. We've got to repel the invaders.
Yeah. That's great. The whole idea about free speech, and for whatever reason, people are against it, and it's always interesting. I mean, Cicero was such a compelling speaker that when they killed him, they took his hands and they chopped him off and nailed him to his door because he was a very physical speaker. And so that was, that was part of the message, right? And so this is not something that we're going to get rid of because it's been around as long as that. And for sure, the Sumerians had the same problem. So when we look at these things,
Ciciro's hands,
that's pretty heavy, right?
Pretty heavy.
Yeah. Like, hey, here's your hands, Mr. Hand Gesture guy, and so it is something that we have to constantly apparently fight for, and it's one of these things that someone always wants to control. Like they'll assign you an outcome, you're a this, like whatever that thing is. And how do you arm kids with something to say? Like someone will say to me, like, I care about something, like I'm in charge of what I care about. And if I care about that, it's up to me. And you don't know if I do or don't. So don't assume that I do. Ask me.
Yeah,
ask me if I care about it. And I may or may not answer. I may or may not tell you the truth. But you can't assign someone a negative thing like you're a Nazi, you're a racist, you're whatever.
Well, that's labeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's even part of the book that's like no name calling. It's like I just call it out. Like that is not communicating, and that's not curiosity. It's like basic rule 101 of good communication. Don't label the other person. Ask questions.
Right.
But it just made me, I'm curious, what happened in your viewpoint during the whole COVID situation, Pete. But it made me notice that I started not speaking up. Because the pressure to agree with the powers that be was so strong, and the penalty for asking even questions. Like I would think in my head, where is the data that 6 feet is the right amount of distance? Like, did you just pull that number out of the air? I think you probably did. But can you show me some data? But even to ask that question had some people going, yay, good question, Aurora, and had other people going, I'm not talking to you ever again, you blankety blank. And I noticed for myself that I was starting to choose the safe path and not speak up. And I'm like, that's not okay with me. And so I put my, I put some of that energy into the book. What happened to you?
Yeah.
Did you notice that with yourself?
Again, like this is, I've been in a head-on collision with a tank. And so things that are scary to me, that's the top. And I've had a bullet whiz by my ear, and so
when that's not a metaphor. That's literally you've had a collision with a tank.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
And so when these things come up like this is dangerous, and I'm like, yeah, it's dangerous for sure, and I don't want to minimize it, but I know how to carry around a loaded gun without killing anybody, and I know how to manage risk pretty well, and it's my life, and so I didn't stay home all the time. I didn't go out to get anybody sick. I was glad to stand back. I was glad to wear my mask and just be invisible. It was a great invisibility cloak.
True.
But for the most part, I lived my life, and I let people say whatever they wanted to say because it's a scary thing. And
Yeah.
I watch states and countries take different approaches, and see them all struggle. And like none of those things were going to be decided in a 10-day block. It was
Hmm.
going to be over time, and so I just sort of took a wait and see attitude. My governor is Governor Newsom, and I saw him absolutely worn out, bloodshot eyes, frog in his throat because he said talked and worked and worked and worked. Did he make the best decisions? Probably not. Was he, working with the information he had? Yeah. Um, does that make him a bad person or a good person? I just think he did the best with what he could do and the advice around him. Could he have done better? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, like I'm pretty severe with golf wasn't going to get anybody sick. When you
Yeah.
go to the beach, you automatically space out. You're just not going to get sick at the beach. There's no way.
Exactly.
And so a lot of it was silly to me. And then when they said that you had to have a vaccination or you would lose your job, and I'm like, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, we've crossed into a different territory now. You don't get to decide what's good for my health.
Yeah.
That's my doctor's job. And if my doctor's like, hey, we don't know enough about this thing, don't get it,
Yeah.
or you specifically cannot get this, then that's not the government's job to decide those things. And so a lot of people took that opportunity to really step on. The governor of Michigan did things to attack farming and gardening and churches and all these different things that happened. That willingness to stomp on people's behavior
Yeah.
said to me that like, hey, I'm not going to comply with those things. I don't need to go to a bar, but in California, if you had a TV on at your bar, like that was illegal.
Yeah.
That's silly. So I don't know. What I was disappointed in us overall with how we all behaved. I did a show with some kids from my school. Some of the parents reached out to me and they said, hey, the kids are having returning to school decided for them.
Mm.
And they don't have a seat at the table. And I'm like, well, I definitely don't like that because
Right.
that's a time for kids. Not every kid. And so we did from kindergarten all the way to seniors a spread of kids and let them kind of talk about what they wanted to do and why they wanted to do it and how they would behave. And you have unions and you have superintendents of schools. You have all these other voices, but where's the damn kids not at the table?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so those are the kind of things that I thought about. But I drove across the nation. I encountered thousands of people. Again, I did it as safely as possible. I did it in areas. It was this time of year. And so
Yeah.
it's 110 outside. There's no virus that's going to jump to me from 10 feet away in 110. Like it's just not going to happen. And so, but I did get to go through Texas and all these other places and see how they all lived differently.
Yeah.
And it was really eye-opening because then you look at the numbers and you're like, for the most part, largely the same outcomes. Like you couldn't say, oh, this one got it right and this one got it wrong. It was like all within a band of normal. And so, yeah, that's a long answer, but that's sort of my impression of giving people the opportunity to stomp on people. They stomped on a lot of people and then turned their backs when it suited their alignment
Yeah.
politically or emotionally. And they attacked the things they didn't like. And I'm in every direction, everybody did this. So, yeah, no, it was disappointing to watch how people were so ready to point a finger and assign you the thing
And
of,
attack
yeah,
or even cancel
yeah,
people. Well, like
yeah,
Lord Acton said, power corrupts and absolute power tends to corrupt. Absolutely. So
absolutely, yeah,
it's not about COVID or any particular thing, but I'm a
right,
stand for curiosity
yeah,
and being allowed to ask questions
sure,
rather than being bullied into having to accept the party line. Just like,
yeah,
you know, it used to be common sense that the Earth was the center of the galaxy. And then
yeah,
it was proven like that's just wrong.
yeah, yeah,
What, we have to learn from that and just be curious and ask questions rather than basically crucifying people who have different opinions.
And then scope back and you realize like we're not even like anywhere near the biggest part of our own galaxy. Like we're just not even an undistinguished blip
Yeah,
of light in like a
exactly.
we don't
Exactly.
even matter, you know. So
That's why I
uh,
wanted to explore the multiverse because it gives the opportunity
yeah,
to explore all different universes and worlds and customs and possibilities, like just like
yeah,
a little bit like Doctor Who. So I'm really excited about presenting that opportunity in a fantastic and fun fantasy world for
yeah,
people to enjoy and be entertained by. So if this sounds like something that is of interest to the listeners, I'd love them to check out the Kickstarter. Go to Kickstarter and just search my name, Aurora Winter, or check out what Pete's got on the screen there. If you go
yeah.
to magicmysteryandthemultiverse.com, it will redirect you. And what's really fun about Kickstarter is I'm offering special edition hardcover books. You can get
Nice.
signed hardcovers, collector's editions, and it's a really fun way. You can just get one book, or you can get the first two books in the series, hardcover, softcover.
Yeah,
You want to buy, if we've got a teacher's pick there or a family fun pick, so you can get books for a couple of people. And there's even a chance to like name a character or be acknowledged in the dedication or be acknowledged at the end of the book in the acknowledgments. That's what's really fun about Kickstarter. Kickstarter is done like before a book comes out. So
yeah,
everybody who backs the Kickstarter has the opportunity at a certain tier to be in the on the dedication page if they're getting one of the collector's edition books, or as long as we reach the next stretch goal, which we're just a couple $100 shy. So go and support the Kickstarter and we'll get the next stretch goal. Then
yeah.
everybody will have their name in the back of the book in the acknowledgments. And this is not just in the special edition Kickstarter version, but from now on, the book
Mm.
will have that. So it's kind of fun for
Yeah,
people to be able to go, hey, I supported this book and have see their name on the dedication page. That's kind of cool.
it is kind of cool. Yeah, and thanks for doing my job. It's so easy. I just sit back and I let Aurora do all the, hey, everybody, listen, buy Aurora's book because it's important. But I want to slow down here and talk a little bit about this because we're in an era where there's so many different avenues to create something, and you can create your own TV show, right? And you can just put it up on YouTube or any one of the zillions of places where you can put things up. But it all takes individual cash, right? And so when you ask for something like this, you're saying, hey, I want to create this world. I want to continue to work in it. Will you support the creation of this thing? And so rather than have a bunch of ads fly at you or, say something like, oh, they're just always sequels and superhero movies, you have the ability to find people that are creating something and send what really is a small amount of money
Yeah.
to create an opportunity for this person to build this universe and take us through it. And what a wonderful thing to do. And look, you only need so many people, and all of a sudden you're like, this is a viable audience, and then
Yeah.
you can grow it from there. And I love it that we have this ability to do this. And then sure, if you want to get into the mainstream with the stories and someone wants to buy the rights and make something, okay, great, you can do that too. But it's neat that you can pick someone that you want to support and be like, I see them working. And so I love that when people do that. And I hope that people do go at least check out the link and see if this book is for you, because I think it is. Aurora is a great person. And you know what I always say, this is my turn to sell, buy two of these things. So kickstart it and then go pre-buy and get to it and give one to a neighbor kid and have your kid, the kid read, and they can go sit in a wardrobe somewhere with the flashlight and have a great time getting taken off to the multiverse through the wardrobe. How you like that? How was that?
I love it. That was great, Pete. Well, I can't imagine a greater gift to give somebody than the gift of loving reading. Loving
Right.
reading has changed my life. First,
Yeah,
it took me to wonderful places like with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and
sure.
other fun books like Howl's Moving Castle or The Hobbit. So many books I just devoured. But then later, I started reading nonfiction, and
Mm,
nonfiction empowered me because it made me feel as though the truth of the situation was any problem I had, I just needed to learn more. And so it
yeah.
shifted my mindset from, well, that's a problem and it's stopping me, to, well, that's a challenge and an opportunity to learn how to overcome it. And this completely changed my life. And then, of course, later I became a published author. And when you read a lot, you learn a lot, and then you are more articulate. And what that is a superpower, to be able to learn, to think, and articulate your thoughts clearly is a superpower. So I'm doing as best I can to give that gift to others. And that's why the book is for young adults, which appeals to about ages 12 and up. This is actually the kind of book I still like reading. I don't like things that are too violent or horror or dystopic.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm all grown up, but I still like reading young adult books. So don't think of it as a kid's book. It's more like Sarah J. Maas kind of books, or The Inheritance Games, or Fourth Wing, or even Good Omens by Terry Pratchett, and Neil Gaiman, or Percy Jackson, a little bit younger. It's in that area. And I'm always looking for a great read, for a world I can go into and not get slimed by something that I don't want to go there. Something fun and uplifting.
When you sit down and you're reading, is that a dedicated chunk of your day? How do you navigate that process? Because I know for me, I've forced myself to learn how to, and it's hard for me to, my PTSD creates a lot of problems for me reading. And so I sort of treat it as a therapy session as well. Like, can I focus on reading, and then I extend the time. And so for me, it's, and I still haven't figured it all out. Like, I used to be able to sit down, boom, flip, and go through books, but I don't have that skill right now. Maybe that's because of my stupid phone. Maybe it's because of PTSD, whatever. But I'm working on trying to figure out what that looks like, because we all want to cozy up with the book by a fire. But the reality is how I read is not that.
That's interesting. So was it the tank or the bullet whizzing by your head? Or
there's too many things. I've been almost killed so many times, and then it's too many things. It's the back-to-back 16 to 20 hour days. It's all those things, and so my job in particular was dangerous.
Yeah, does sound. We got a lot of stories to get into, Pete. I'll tell you what I do, and then maybe we can dive deeper into what's happening for you. So I'm a multitasker. So if I don't watch it, I will get up and wander off and do something else. So I don't like to read on any electronic device. I prefer to read a print book with a pen and another blank notebook. And what I do is I stretch as I'm reading. So I'm doing kind of like leaning forward, doing a stretch, the pigeon pose, I guess. So I feel like I am stretching. This is multitasking. And then I underline words that I like. And then I write phrases that I like in my notebook to make it more active. And that makes the reading, it takes it to up a notch, because then I'm also thinking, I really like that turn of phrase. And I write the turns of phrase in my other book where I'm kind of studying writing. And then I usually write every morning. I usually read every night and write every morning. And then in the morning I'll flip through the pages and see if I can at least use one of those words or one of those turns of phrase in what I'm working on that morning. So just, here I can even reach the book and see if I can share an example.
Yeah, this is fun. Do that for sure.
Writing notes. Make sure I got the right book. I got so many. Okay. All right. So then which book? Oh, here's a phrase. I schooled my face into neutrality. I like that. And then the dress hissed and swished. Like swished is kind of normal to go with dress, but it hissed and swished. Yeah. I like that. This is from A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Maas. Or here's another example. He was a good storyteller, the cadences of his voice rising and falling like the movements of a song. I'm like, oh, that's kind of nice. And so it makes the reading more active for me.
I like it. Yeah.
Or here from The Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. He said with a thin edge of desperation in his voice. So I don't know if that would appeal to you. I know you're not writing as much as I am, but it does make it more active. And
I actually am writing quite a bit right now.
are you?
Actually, right? Yeah, I'm in a hot streak with writing. I'm working on a couple of different projects, and so it involves a lot of me reading and regurgitating and writing, but probably not as much as you are because I'm not doing it professionally. I am doing professional work, but I'm not writing something that will be a professional product that I create. It'll be something else.
Oh, what are
So
you writing?
yeah, I'm working on a couple of different documentaries, and I'm just trying to get through a lot of the pre-work of what the story is, so that it can be linked together. One's a baseball story about a guy named Felipe Alou, who was the first Dominican player. He's sort of like the Jackie Robinson of the Latin American players, and there's that. There's one about the origin of the blues in a place called Storyville in New Orleans, and it's
Oh,
just got a whole host of characters, right? And it's all real stuff. And so I've got to try to like learn how to enter this. I've got to learn how to like the blues thing. I have to fictionalize with real people because there's only so much information from that time, right? And a lot of it is sensationalized. So like, how do you cut that down into actual dramatic moments, funny moments, musical moments? So
right.
that you're like, who are the characters? You know, you need an antagonist, you need a protagonist, and you can quickly make this thing too big so that it's unwieldy. But it's a lot like I would say like what was that Boardwalk Empire? That series about New Jersey early on. It had like bootlegging and all these other things in it. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff in it.
There's a lot of
But the
thinking to go into what characters can I compress? What are the most interesting moments, the dynamic
right,
moments, musical
yeah,
moments? How do you
right.
fund it? Have you ever done it or ever considered doing a Kickstarter? Or
I
how
um
do you
I would
self-fund or
consider.
have broadcasters?
Yeah, it would be fun to do a Kickstarter. I just don't know that I have the reach for that. I would rather go into the traditional market and find someone who's interested in telling
Hmm.
these stories, because if I had a bigger access to that kind of money, I would much rather just do it myself, right? But I don't have I'm just not noteworthy enough to be able to reach
Not
in and do
yet.
that. Like, sure, not yet. Yeah, right, right. And listen, I don't want to give my control of my story. Oh, I see my story, the story that I'm working on with other people,
Yeah.
but I don't want to give control of that to any streaming service. I want to bring it to them and say, this is what we've built,
Yeah.
and this is the story, and I've told it in this way with these people because it's meant to be authentic.
Yeah.
Like we're really going to have people that actually play instruments. We're not just going to push buttons, beep, 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 that kind of thing.
Right.
So that's what I'm working on writing wise. But I wanted to get back to your turn of phrase and capturing words and just those things that stand out when you read a book. And that is one of the great things about listening or reading on a Kindle or reading a regular book. You have these different avenues where I can read a book and then listen to it, and I'm taking the best words that this author can put together in their life, even if they've written a million words and published them. It's still a finite amount of words. It's just not
Yeah.
that many, and they're putting their best effort into every one of those words. And then someone went through and edited it and made it even better. And so you're really getting the best things. And so I don't mind pushing through a book 2, 3, 4 times. And that might take me 20 years to get through that, back to that book. But my perspective has changed so much that I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that this was in this. And this informed me for the last 20 years. And I read this and like, oh, this has a whole new meaning to me now. Right. And so
Yeah.
all of these things. And then the final thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up, is I love to turn the turn of phrase. So like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But is what's good for the gander good for the goose?
Yeah. That's fun.
And I love stuff like that, or like an ill-fated twist, or just a twist that is ill-fated. Like you just turn these things around a little bit. Like this is a twist that
It makes
is
it
faded,
fresh. It makes it fresh
right?
when you do that.
You
Yeah.
think about a faded twist, like that's coming, and we all know that. Look, here's a faded twist. Some crazy shit is going to happen in this presidential campaign. It's faded. There's going to be some crazy
It's
twist,
already been
right?
some crazy twists
Right,
happening.
and so
God.
it's inevitable.
Yeah.
so,
Oh my
and
gosh.
so it makes you look at the story differently when you think about something that like this is going to have another twist in it. I know
Yeah.
it's coming. We just don't know what it is.
Well, it's interesting. When I spoke at the library yesterday, I had a group of kids there, ages 10 plus. And so I wanted to do a little writing exercise. They love this writing exercise, but people who are listening might want to do it because you talk about twists, so you're making me think of it.
Yeah.
So I love the book. There's a book called The Bestseller Code, and they actually used AI to analyze best-selling books. And what they discovered is that best-selling books like The Da Vinci Code, for example, or 50 Shades of Grey have a very specific heartbeat. And every about 10% of the book, there is an up or a down, and it goes up, down, up, down, up, down, basically. So if it was, say, 100,000 word book, just to make it easy, every 10,000 words, there would be a shift. So I told the kids the fable that I'm sure you've heard to get them in the right space. And then I invited them to see if how many times they could do a twist in the story. So I told them the little story about the Chinese farmer that you've heard, but just to drive the point home, so people might want to do this twist exercise at home so they can start writing their best-selling book. And it's the story of a farmer and his son, and they're living near some barbarian open land. But they have a little farm, and they have one horse, and that's a great deal of their wealth because the horse is essential for pulling the plow and getting to town. Anyway, one day the stallion runs off, and they've lost the horse. And then the neighbors come by, and they tell the father, "Oh, that's terrible. That's awful." And he's like, "Well, maybe so, and maybe not." And a couple of days later, the stallion comes back with 6 mares. So now they've gone from 0 horse to 7 horses. They got their stallion back and a bunch of wild horses. And the neighbors come by, and they tell the father, "Oh, this is fantastic. Wow, what riches you have. This is such great news." And he's like, "Maybe so, maybe not." The next day, the son is trying to break one of these wild horses, and he rides it, and he falls and breaks his leg, shatters his leg. And the neighbors come by and tell the father, "Oh, this is awful. This is terrible news." And he's like, "Maybe so, maybe not." And then the next day, the army come, and they conscript all the able-bodied young men to go fight in a hopeless war. But because the son has a broken leg, he is not conscripted. The other able-bodied young men are taken to go to war, and he stays home where he's going to survive. So, and then the neighbors come by and say, "What great news." And the father says, "Maybe so, maybe not." So this is part of what happens in a good movie, and a good documentary, and a good book. You keep flipping the story, and yet it all makes sense, right? The story makes sense. And yet editing is about where do you stop the story, right? But can you think of another way to flip it? So that's one of the things I really have fun doing with my stories, is making them entertaining and engaging, but surprising with twists.
No, that's great. And that exercise in turning twists, into twists, that twist off those twists, and that whole thing in writing, I think it's a great exercise just in general. Trying to put words into an order that makes you proud is just a good exercise. And even if it's, like the whole thing, I always think like just the Hemingway thing, start with one true statement. And that sounds easy until you look at a blank page and go, what's the true statement I can start with right now? And it's got to be like, to me, it's got to be crystal clear truth, And so it doesn't give me writer's block, but it gives me the ability to really consider, like, what is the first thing I need to say about this thing that I'm going to write? And I will spend a good deal of time making sure that truth is as pure as I can make it, and as short as I can make it. And then from there, we've already brainstormed a whole lot about this thing, and I'm off and running, and I'm easily 500 words in. And look, I'm not editing. This is just like almost like free writing, but I've thought about that first truth and that first sentence, and I've built it, and it gives me a lot of energy for what I'm writing. And if it doesn't work, then I stop, and then I reassess, and I read, and next thing you know, I'm still writing.
Oh, that's interesting. That might give people writer's block, but it works for you. Do you have an example? Do you have an example of a?
What was the last one I did? Well, so one of I like to write about baseball quite a lot, and so I was looking at some old newspaper articles from a time, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to write about this era. What is the first thing that I want to say about this? And in the baseball world, there's people that will want to put a modern player into a time machine and send them back in time. And so they'll say, Aaron Judge is the ball bashingest New York Yankee. He's great. He's like just a Hall of Fame player coming. Like, all he's got to do is keep going, and he'll be one of the historic players. And so they want to put him like back with Babe Ruth. And so what I always say is, like, first off, it's not possible. You play the players that are in front of you. But second, like, if you go back to 1895, and you say, hey, I'm going to start my life right now, it's 1 in 4 kids die before they're 18. And that's the truth right there. So
Mm.
in 1895, 1 in 4 children die before they reach the age of 18.
Wow.
Just crystal clear, right? So you're going to put someone into a machine and send them back in time, and you've already got a 25% chance that they're going to die,
Yeah, when we get nostalgic for the olden days, we forget all of these horrible statistics.
Yeah.
25% of women died in childbirth. Like
Yeah.
it was no mean feat to have a healthy child and have the mother survive. So
Yeah.
those big brains. But what it's interesting that you challenge yourself to come up with the truth to start, and I really love that. How I
And I had to back into that for you to explain it. Like, here's the truth of what it is and why it's going to be important when I write these next 1,500 to 2,000 words.
Yeah. So when I'm not working on fantasy books like Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse, I'm helping other people create their own books. I have a company called Same Page Publishing, and we are devoted to creating best-selling, award-winning books that make a difference. And how I help people do that is most people can talk. Like, you can talk up a storm, Pete.
Right.
But most people can talk about their area of passion and expertise easily 8,000 words an hour. But most people cannot write 8,000 words in a week, let alone in an hour. So I use the spoken author method, which I explained in a different book of mine called Turn Words into Wealth, which is this book here, to help people create books. So that's, a different life from the fantasy book that's on Kickstarter. But if people are facing the blank page, I invite them to either start with the truth, like you suggested, or see if they can challenge themselves to come up with a bunch of twists that may give you a bit of a plot idea for your fiction or for your nonfiction, or record yourself on video or audio. A lot of people can get going that way and not have to face that blank page. Or if you want help, if you're already an expert or an entrepreneur and wanting to launch to the next level as a thought leader, you can come on over to samepagepublishing.com and grab the Thought Leader Launch. Oh, that's so kind. You're so organized, Pete. You can go to samepagepublishing.com and you can get a Thought Leader Launch starter library for free. And if that appeals to you, you can sign up for a business breakthrough call, and my team and I will help you create your book, which can be kind of fun. But my main focus on our call today is about the Kickstarter.
Right. Yeah. So let me put these links up here and let's go through this one more time. So you can always go to right here to, I got to make sure I read it right, Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse.com. That's where the Kickstarter is. That's where the information about the book series is. You can go there and go bananas and support Aurora's work. If you want to look at the self-publishing thing, you can go here and you can just go to that link right there, Same Page Publishing. By the way, all of this stuff is available at AuroraWinter.com. It's a whole bunch of tabs because she's a busy lady. And if you're like, Pete, just shut up and let me buy the dang books, there you go, right there. That's the Amazon link. You just go there and buy. Book 1 is out. Book 2 comes out in September, which is amazingly like 6 weeks away. So,
Gosh, I know.
I mean, the middle of September is coming.
Exactly. It's coming really fast.
It's amazing. And it's neat to be able to do these things. And I really appreciate you for sitting down with me and taking the time to have these conversations, because it's inspiring to me too. Like, it's not the next thing on my list of things to do because I've got something else immediately after this like you do. But I want to go and I want to go sit down and write a bunch of stuff. I've got this. I've got another. I normally write nonfiction when I write about baseball, but I want to take this time machine story and like put a person in a time machine, excuse me, and have them show up. And I don't want to spoil the story, but just do like a novella. I mean,
that would be a cool story.
Published. Yeah.
That'd be a cool story.
Guess what? Nothing goes the way we want it to go. He's not out there like bashing home runs.
Well, I always love connecting with you, Pete. You're fun and you've got such interesting stories. And I look forward to connecting again another time and maybe reading your baseball story or hopefully seeing your film. That would be really great.
Well, boy, let's hope.
Did I mention that BBC has expressed interest in turning this into a fantasy series?
Perfect.
So
I was going to ask about
really
the rights
cool.
to their interest.
I met with them last month, and so they're interested in doing 10 episodes. So we shall see. Maybe we'll have a series to
Yeah.
share on our next podcast.
Well, if I can help at all with that, let me know. I would love to be involved and support you in any way possible, because that is exciting to me to see something like that happen. And so everybody get on board with Aurora and support her. Go to all the different resources. Just when in doubt, Aurora Winter, type that in. You will find her. She's all laid out right there on the internet, so you can grab whatever you want, and it's all well tabbed, and so you can get to the books, the nonfiction, whatever it is. And definitely look at this lady and how great she's with stories. Hire her to come out and talk at your library and talk to kids and everything. What else do you want to say before we wrap this thing up?
Just thank you, Pete. That was really fun. I hope people go to the Kickstarter and just put my name in there, Aurora Winter, and check it out. Hopefully inspiring kids, inspiring youth, and with an entertaining and engaging story. That's my mission. And this was really fun to connect with you. So I'm coming to LA in September, so we should get together.
Let's do that for sure. Let's for sure 100% do that. Okay, stay with me. I'll be right back to you. Bye-bye, everybody else.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much